The vast command chamber hummed softly with the sound of countless electronic devices. Screens floated in midair, displaying maps, data streams, and reports from distant battlefronts. Around a central holly table, a group of elite alien soldiers lounged in their seats, their armored forms relaxed but alert. Jarnock, the squad's unofficial leader, smirked as he swiped through the latest intercepted human transmissions. The flickering images showed scenes from Earth, ancient battles, heroic figures, and stories of legendary human warriors. "Look at this," Jarnock said, his voice thick with amusement. "Humans call this the legend of the Iron Wolf, a man who fought 100 enemies at once and survived." He laughed, shaking his head. "Fairy tales for a primitive species. They cling to these myths as if they are gods." Another soldier, Virek, leaned forward, his 4 eyes narrowing. "Why do they spread such nonsense? It only highlights how weak they really are. No advanced technology, no real power." Exactly, chimed in Daxter, a burly alien with mottled skin. "Their weapons are outdated, their tactics slow. Yet, they tell stories of strength and courage that sound like children's bedtime tales. It's laughable." Across the room, the commander, General Jorik, listened silently. His expression was unreadable. The soldiers' scorn echoed the widely held belief among their race that humans were inferior, easily crushed by superior technology and intellect. Suddenly, a message arrived, breaking the light-hearted mood. General Jorok tapped the console, summoning a hologram of a tall, rugged man in military gear. His face was weathered, eyes sharp with experience. "Captain Eli Ward," the caption read. "This is your new squad member," Yorick announced without emotion. "A human veteran. He will join your unit immediately." The room fell silent. The soldiers exchanged uneasy glances. A human. Among them, it felt like a joke. Jarnock scoffed. "A human warrior. I've heard of their myths, but seeing one in real life, this will be entertaining." Virek snorted. "He'll break under pressure. All humans do." The holoscreen flickered, and Captain Ward's image solidified. He looked directly at them, unflinching. "I'm not here to prove stories," he said simply. "I'm here to fight, to survive." The soldiers studied him, trying to find a weakness in his steely gaze. None appeared as preparations began to integrate Captain Ward into the squad. The alien soldiers returned to their banter, mocking the human tales they'd just been reminded of. "Humans speak of the Iron Wolf surviving 100 enemies," Daxter said, mimicking a growl. "I bet he was lucky. No real skill." Jarnock grinned. "Or maybe that's just how humans make up for their weakness by telling grand stories they wish were true." But a seed of doubt had been planted. There was something different about this human, something no legend could fully explain. Later that evening, the squad gathered in their quarters. Holo projections of various planets flickered on the walls, and the low murmur of conversations filled the room. Captain Ward sat apart, quietly cleaning his gear. The aliens watched, curiosity mixed with skepticism. Virek approached him cautiously. "Tell me, human," he said, "why do your people believe in these myths? What purpose do they serve when your technology is so inferior?" Ward looked up, meeting Virek's gaze. "Myths are more than stories," he said. "They are lessons passed down about hope, courage, and surviving when all seems lost. They remind us who we are." The alien tilted his head. "But you live in a world where power means survival. How does believing in tales change that?" Ward smiled faintly. "Because power isn't just about weapons or numbers. It's about spirit. When everything else fails, that spirit keeps us standing." The room fell silent as his words settled in. Jarnock broke the quiet, laughing. "A spirit. That sounds like weakness hiding behind sentiment. Ward didn't respond. Instead, he stood and looked out at the stars through the viewport. "We'll see," he said quietly. For now, the aliens still mocked. But deep down, they wondered if the myths were closer to reality than they had thought. And if this human was something more than just a story. The next morning, the squad assembled on the training grounds of the orbital base, a massive platform suspended in the void above a desolate moon. The cold steel beneath their boots echoed with every step. The alien soldiers moved with practiced precision, weapons slung and armor gleaming under the harsh, artificial lights. Captain Eli Ward stood apart from them, his human frame smaller and less imposing than the towering aliens, but his posture radiated something no armor could hide: quiet confidence. His eyes scanned the training field, taking in every detail, every pattern of movement. The squad commander, Jarnock, stepped forward, arms crossed. "This is your first day with us, human. You will learn fast, or you will not survive." Ward nodded. "I'm ready." The other soldiers exchanged glances. Some sneered, others watched curiously. None expected the human to last long. The training began with standard drills: marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat, tactical maneuvers. Ward moved deliberately, not fastest, but precise. He anticipated attacks and countered with efficiency. The aliens, with their superior strength and speed, attacked aggressively, expecting to overpower him easily. But Ward didn't falter. When the sparring rounds began, Jarnock paired himself with the human, eager to prove his point. The aliens' strikes came fast, brutal, aiming to test the human's limits. Ward dodged and parried, weaving with a grace that belied his age. More than once, he exploited a tiny opening, landing blows that made Jarnock stumble. The squad watched in stunned silence. After the sparring, Jarnock grunted, "You fight differently. Slower, but smarter." Ward wiped sweat from his brow. "Experience teaches you how to survive. It's not about speed or strength alone." Virek stepped forward, voice dripping with disbelief. "How can you call this combat? It's no match for our technology and power." Ward met Virek's gaze steadily. "Power isn't just about weapons or muscle. It's about knowing when to strike and when to wait." The day's training ended with a tactical exercise, a simulated mission against an enemy force. The alien soldiers moved as a unit, coordinated and efficient. Ward stayed near the back, observing the battlefield through the eyes of a seasoned soldier. Not a rookie. When the enemy ambushed from an unexpected angle, panic rippled through the squad. Communication broke down and chaos spread. Ward's voice cut through the noise. "Form up. Use the narrow pass. Hold the line." The aliens hesitated, then followed his commands. Using the terrain, Ward led the squad through a defensive maneuver that stalled the enemy advance and bought time. The simulation ended with the squad intact. A surprising success, considering the odds. Jarnock approached Ward afterward, expression unreadable. "You saved us back there. I admit, I underestimated you." Ward shrugged. "We all learn. That's how we survive." But not all the squad shared Jarnock's respect. Daxter, the biggest and most aggressive, scoffed loudly. "It was luck. Humans cling to luck because they have nothing else." That night, the squad gathered again, this time in the mess hall. Conversations buzzed around the table, but the mood had shifted. Ward's actions on the training ground were impossible to ignore. Virek, who had challenged him earlier, nodded slowly. "Perhaps there is more to your kind than stories?" Ward smiled faintly. "There is always more. Stories are only the beginning." The alien soldiers exchanged glances, a mix of curiosity and unease. For the first time, the myths they had mocked seemed to have some truth behind them. In his quarters, Ward sat alone, cleaning his weapon with steady hands. His mind replayed the day's events, not as a boast, But as a reminder, the aliens had power, but they lacked something vital. That spirit that kept humans fighting, even when hope was gone. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. The real battles were still ahead. And Captain Eli Ward intended to prove that the myths were not just stories, they were warnings. The squad's next mission came faster than expected. A distress signal from a remote mining colony had gone silent. The command ordered the elite squad to investigate and, if necessary, neutralize any threats. The stakes were Hephalia. Was not an option. Captain Eli Ward stood among his team as their ship dropped out of hyperspace near the planet's orbit. The planet below was a barren wasteland, jagged mountains slicing through thick clouds of dust and ash. The mining colony sat near a craggy ridge, barely visible through the haze. Jarnock glanced at Ward. "This is your first real battle with us. Ready?" Ward's reply was simple. "Always." The squad descended to the planet's surface, landing in a dust-choked clearing a few kilometers from the colony. Sensors picked up signs of heavy combat, scorched earth, twisted metal, and the lingering scent of burning fuel. "Enemy forces must still be here," Virek said, tightening his grip on his rifle. "Stay sharp," Ward warned. "Abel? Be expecting us." The squad moved out in formation, scanners sweeping the area. Suddenly, an ambush erupted. From the rocky outcrops, enemy soldiers, hulking creatures with jagged armor and vicious claws, charged forward with terrifying speed. The aliens fired back with deadly precision, their plasma weapons tearing through the attackers. Ward took cover behind a ruined vehicle, observing the battlefield with a calm that unnerved even his squad mates. The alien soldiers fought with raw power. But the enemy's ferocity pushed them back step by step. Jarnock barked orders, coordinating fire and movement. But the enemy's unpredictable tactics began to overwhelm them. Ward saw an opening, a narrow canyon just ahead. "Fall back to the canyon," he shouted. "Use the choke point." Some of the aliens hesitated, unwilling to retreat under pressure. But Ward's voice cut through the chaos, firm and commanding. "Now, move." Reluctantly, the squad pulled back, regrouping at the canyon's mouth. The enemy surged forward, unaware of the trap waiting for them. Ward took the lead, setting explosive charges in the rocky walls. "When I say fire," he called, "we bring the mountain down on them." The squad prepared, tense but ready. The enemy closed in, snarling and relentless. "Fire!" Ward shouted. A thunderous roar shook the canyon as explosives detonated, sending boulders crashing down and blocking the enemy's advance. Trapped and disoriented, the attackers faltered. The squad pressed their advantage, striking with coordinated precision. Alien plasma blasts and sharp blades cut through the enemy forces, forcing them to retreat. When the dust settled, the squad stood victorious. The enemy threat was eliminated. The mining colony's survivors safe for now. Jarnock looked at Ward with a mix of surprise and grudging respect. "You saved us back there. Your tactics, they worked." Ward nodded quietly. "Sometimes, survival means using your mind, not just your weapons." Virek approached, his skepticism softened. "I admit, I didn't expect your methods to be effective. You see the battlefield differently." Ward's eyes held a quiet intensity. "Experience teaches you that every fight is unique. Adapt or die." The alien soldiers began to see that their initial assumptions about humans were wrong. Ward's calm under fire and his strategic mind challenged everything they believed. Later, as the squad rested, Ward shared more stories, not just myths, but real accounts of battles where humans survived impossible odds. The aliens listened, intrigued by the idea that courage and cunning could rival superior technology. Daxter, still reluctant, grunted, "Maybe your people's stories hold some truth. But luck plays a part." Ward smiled. Luck favors the prepared and the determined. As night fell over the barren planet, the squad gathered around a flickering campfire. The alien soldiers were quieter now, thoughtful. The human myths were no longer just tales to mock, but lessons to consider. Captain Eli Ward sat among them, not just a new member of the team, but a symbol of something greater, the unbreakable human spirit that refused to yield, no matter the odds. The real test had only just begun. The alien camp was quiet under the cold stars, the glow from scattered fires casting long shadows over the rocky ground. After the day's harrowing mission, the squad was weary but alive. The survivors from the mining colony had been secured, and the immediate threat neutralized. But the tension among the alien soldiers remained. Captain Eli Ward sat slightly apart from the others, his face illuminated by the flickering firelight. Around him, the alien soldiers exchanged curious glances. They had watched him fight, lead, and survive with an unyielding spirit they had once dismissed as mere myth. Now, some of their skepticism was giving way to something near respect. Jarnock approached and lowered himself beside Ward. "Your tactics saved us. Not just your weapons, but your mind." Ward nodded, rubbing his hands together to keep warm. "Sometimes, that's all you have left." There was a pause, then Virak spoke, his voice quieter than usual. "You speak often of human myths, stories of courage and survival. What truth lies behind those tales? Why do you cling to them so strongly?" Ward glanced up at the stars, as if drawing strength from their cold light. "Those stories are born from real moments where ordinary people faced impossible odds and refused to give in. They remind us what it means to be human." Daxter snorted softly. "Stories don't win battles. Strength does." Ward smiled, but it was not a mocking smile. "Strength is more than muscle and weapons. It's the will to stand when everything else fails." The aliens listened, intrigued despite themselves. Ward began to share some of the myths he had mentioned, before not as fanciful tales, but as lessons learned through struggle. "There's a story we call The Last Stand of the Sentinel. A small group of soldiers, surrounded and outnumbered, holding a position to buy time for others to escape. They knew they wouldn't survive, but they fought anyway because giving up meant the end for everyone else." Jarnock frowned. "A pointless sacrifice." Ward shook his head. "Not pointless. Their courage inspired others. The battle was lost, but the war was won. That's the power of spirit." Virak leaned forward. "You believe stories like this make you stronger?" Ward nodded. "They remind us what we're fighting for. They teach us about sacrifice, hope, and resilience. When you're alone in the dark, those stories keep the light alive." The alien soldiers were silent, the weight of Ward's words settling among them. They had fought countless battles with overwhelming force, yet the idea that something beyond technology and strength could be decisive was foreign. Ward continued, telling tales of human ingenuity, of fighters who used their environment, their wits, and their will to survive against enemies far more powerful. He spoke of the unbreakable bond between soldiers, forged in fire and hardship. "It's not just about surviving the battle," Ward said quietly. "It's about never losing yourself. No matter what happens, no matter how dark it gets, you hold on to the part of you that says, 'I will not be defeated.'" Jarnock glanced around at his squad. "I see why you fought so well today, not because of your weapons, but because you carry those stories inside you." Ward looked at him steadily. "We all carry them. They're why we don't give up." For the first time, the aliens understood. The myths were not just lies or embellishments. They were the foundation of a spirit that refused to be broken. As the fire cracked and the night deepened, the squad sat closer together. The barrier between alien and human began to fade. replaced by something stronger, a shared understanding of what it truly meant to fight. Daxter, ever the skeptic, finally nodded slowly. Perhaps we have underestimated you, human. Your stories hold a truth we have yet to learn. Ward smiled, a faint light in the darkness. Then, let me show you. The night stretched on, filled with stories and quiet conversation. And somewhere, in the distance, the stars watched on, silent witnesses to a new chapter in an ancient tale. The squad's next challenge arrived without warning. The enemy they had fought on the mining planet was stronger and more organized than anyone expected. Intelligence reports warned of a massive assault aimed at crushing the squad's influence. In the sector, as dawn broke, the alien soldiers prepared for what promised to be their toughest battle yet. The air was thick with tension, the hum of weapons and armor blending with the harsh wind that swept over the rocky plains. Captain Eli Ward moved among his squad, checking gear and offering quiet words of encouragement. Jarnak's usual bravado was replaced by a grim focus. This enemy will not give us an inch. They fight with fury and numbers. We need every advantage. Ward nodded. We have something they don't, the will to keep fighting. The squad moved out, weapons ready, eyes scanning the horizon. The enemy arrived swiftly, a wave of brutal force crashing over the landscape like a storm. Alien soldiers, massive and relentless, poured from hidden positions, their claws and energy weapons slicing through the air. The squad responded with disciplined fire, but the sheer ferocity of the attack was overwhelming. Despite their advanced technology and training, the aliens found themselves pushed back. Forced into a defensive position, Jarnak barked orders, rallying the soldiers. Hold the line, don't let them break through. But cracks began to appear. Morale wavered as casualties mounted. The enemy's relentless pressure began to erode the squad's confidence. Virek, usually calm and collected, faltered, his shots missing their mark. Daxter's growls turned to frustrated roars. The once confident soldiers now looked to each other with fear. Ward observed the chaos, his mind sharp and steady. He saw the enemy's pattern, their weakness hidden beneath the brute force. He stepped forward, voice carrying over the din of battle. Form up on me. Use the Tyrendone, stand in the open. We can't win this by strength alone. Jarnak hesitated, doubt flickering in his eyes. We're trained to fight head-on. What's your plan? Ward's gaze was firm. Adapt or die. We fight smart. The squad slowly regrouped under Ward's direction, moving into a narrow valley surrounded by towering cliffs. The enemy followed, eager to finish the fight quickly. Ward signaled to Virek and Daxter to prepare their weapons. When I give the word, hit the cliff's supports. The rocks will fall. Moments later, the enemy surged forward into the trap. As they closed in, Ward gave the command. Now. Explosions rocked the valley as boulders crashed down, blocking the enemy's advance and creating chaos. The trapped attackers struggled to escape the sudden blockade. The squad seized the opportunity. With renewed energy, they struck with precision and ferocity, cutting through the disoriented enemy ranks. Jarnak fought alongside Ward, amazed at the humans' calm leadership. You saved us again. Your tactics, they work. Ward's voice was steady. Tactics are only part of it. We fight because we refuse to lose. The enemy eventually retreated, broken and beaten. The squad stood victorious, but battered. Silence fell over the battlefield, broken only by heavy breathing and the crackling of fires. The alien soldiers looked at each other, the weight of the fight settling in their minds. They no longer saw Captain Eli Ward as just a human. He was a leader who inspired hope when all seemed lost. That night, round the campfire, the squad shared stories, not just human myths, but tales of battles they had each fought and survived. Ward listened, contributing his own experiences. Virek finally admitted, "Your spirit, your will to fight. It's unlike anything we have known. Your myths are not just stories. They are truths." Ward smiled, tired but proud. They are a reminder that no matter how dark the night, dawn will come, and we will still be standing. The bond between the soldiers had deepened. The alien? Soldiers were beginning to see the power behind the human spirit. A force far greater than any weapon or technology. Tomorrow would bring new battles. But for now, they had learned that courage and will could turn the tide when everything else failed. And that was a lesson none of them would ever forget. The victory on the barren plains brought a brief respite, but the squad knew the war was far from over. Command summoned them to a secure briefing room aboard their orbiting ship. The cold, sterile environment contrasted sharply with the rough terrain they'd just fought across. General Jorak's hologram filled the room, his expression as stern as ever. "The enemy forces have regrouped. Their next move will be decisive. You are to lead a strike deep into their stronghold." Jarnock exchanged uneasy glances. The mission was dangerous, near suicide, some whispered. But there was no choice. As the squad prepared, Ward found a quiet moment with Jarnock. "I've seen what these enemies can do. We need to be ready for anything." Jarnock nodded slowly. "You've earned my respect, Ward. We'll follow your lead." The ship dropped out of hyperspace near the enemy stronghold, a massive fortress carved into the side of a dying star. The enemy's numbers were overwhelming, their defenses nearly impenetrable. The squad descended under heavy fire, landing in a shadowed canyon at the fortress's edge. The air was thick with tension as they moved stealthily through rocky crags toward their objective. Ward's experience guided them through narrow passages and sensor blind spots. The aliens, though, unfamiliar with guerrilla tactics, adapted quickly under his command. Suddenly, they reached a cavernous chamber deep within the fortress. There, amidst alien machinery and strange devices, lay evidence that shattered the squad's assumptions. Ancient carvings on the walls depicted humans not as weak primitives, a tease, but as warriors who had fought alongside other species against a common enemy millennia ago. Virek studied the images, disbelief etched on his face. These stories, ... they were real. Ward's voice was steady but quiet. Much of human history has been lost or misunderstood. The myths you mocked are fragments of truth. Jarnock touched the carvings, a new respect dawning. We thought humans were weak, but this is a legacy of strength. The squad realized that the enemy they faced was not just a threat to their present, but a dark force that had shaped galactic history. Humans were part of a much larger story, one of ancient alliances, betrayal, and survival, as they prepared to plant charges and sabotage the fortress. Ward shared a final story, a human legend about a warrior who, facing impossible odds, inspired others to rise and fight. "Courage," Ward said, "is not the absence of fear. It's acting in spite of it. That's what we need now." The mission was dangerous, the odds slim, but the squad moved forward with renewed purpose, united by truths deeper than any myth. In that moment, alien and human stood not as enemies or strangers, but as comrades bound by the unyielding spirit of survival. The squad moved through the labyrinthine corridors of the enemy's stronghold, each step echoing in the cold silence. The air was thick with tension and the scent of burning circuits. They knew the enemy was close waiting. Captain Eli Ward led, with a quiet determination, his senses sharp. Every shadow, every flicker of movement could mean danger. The ancient carvings they'd found earlier lingered in his mind, a reminder that this battle was part of something far bigger than themselves. Jarnock's squad followed closely, their weapons ready. The aliens, once skeptical of the humans' tales, now looked to Ward not just as a soldier, but as a leader. Suddenly, alarms blared. Red lights pulsed through the corridors. The enemy had discovered their presence. Defensive positions. Ward commanded, "Prepare for contact." From hidden vents and side passages, enemy warriors poured in swift, ruthless, and relentless. The battle erupted in a chaos of blaster fire and close-quarters combat. Ward fought with practiced precision, moving like a shadow. His strikes were calculated, efficient, each one saving a comrade's life. Around him, the alien soldiers fought with renewed ferocity, inspired by his unwavering spirit. Despite their courage, the squad was pushed back, forced into a narrow chamber with no clear escape. The enemy closed in, surrounding them. Jarnock gritted. His teeth, "We can't hold them here." Ward's eyes scanned the chamber, calculating. "We won't hold, we'll survive." He signaled to Viarek and Daxter. "Plant charges on the main support pillars. When I give the word, blow the chamber." The soldiers nodded, working quickly under fire. The enemy pressed closer, but the squad held firm. Buying precious time, Ward turned to his team, voice steady despite the danger. "This is where legends are born. Stand strong. Fight for each other." The enemy breached the perimeter. Blaster bolts streaked past, sparks flying as they struck the metal walls. Ward's blade flashed, cutting through attackers with relentless resolve. The charges beeped down to their final seconds. "Now," Ward shouted. A thunderous explosion shook the chamber as the pillars collapsed, bringing the ceiling down in a crushing wave of debris. The enemy forces were buried beneath the rubble. Their assault ended. Silence fell. The squad was battered, but alive, victorious against overwhelming odds. Jarnock clapped Ward on the shoulder. "You were right. It's not just strength, it's spirit, the human myths. They're more than stories." Ward looked around at his comrades, pride in his eyes. "We fight because we refuse to lose. Because we believe in something greater than ourselves." The alien soldiers nodded, their skepticism replaced by respect and understanding. They had witnessed firsthand the power of human courage and the unbreakable will to survive. As the squad made their way back to the ship, the burden of battle lifted slightly. They carried with them not just the victory, but a bond forged in Fiera, bond that would change how they saw each other forever. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, but together they were stronger. The myths were not just echoes of the past, they were the foundation for a future captain. Captain Eli Ward smiled faintly. The war was far from over, but now no one would doubt the truth behind the stories. The ship's engines hummed steadily as it lifted off from the shattered enemy stronghold. Inside, the squad gathered in the common area, wounds tended and spirits weary but unbroken. Outside the viewport, the stars stretched endlessly, silent witnesses to their triumph and sacrifice. Captain Eli Ward stood by the window, his gaze distant. The battles they'd fought, the lives lost, the myths revealed, it all weighed heavily on him. But beneath that weight was a spark, a quiet flame that refused to be extinguished. Jarnock approached, his expression softened by newfound respect. "You changed us, Ward. Not just in battle, but in how we see ourselves and each other." Ward nodded. "That was never my intention, but I'm glad it happened." Sometimes, the greatest victories come from understanding. Viarek joined them, his usual skepticism replaced by a thoughtful calm. "Your stories, your spirit, it's a force no weapon can match. We were wrong to mock them." Daxter grunted his agreement. "The human myths are alive because of you." Ward smiled faintly. "We carry those stories because they remind us who we are, no matter the odds, no matter the enemy." The squad shared a rare moment of silence. The bonds forged in battle settling into something deeper: trust, respect, and a shared purpose. Back at command, their success rippled through the ranks. Alien soldiers who once laughed at human tales now spoke of Captain Eli Ward as a symbol of hope and resilience. His presence had turned myth into reality, legend into truth. Ward himself knew the fight was far from over. New threats loomed on the horizon, darker and more cunning. But he was no longer just a lone human among aliens. He was part of a team, a force united by more than technology or muscle united by spirit. One evening, as the ship sailed through the void, Ward sat down with Jarnock to discuss the future. The galaxy doesn't care about myths or legends, Ward said quietly, but it respects strength and the will to survive. Jarnock nodded. And now, we have both. Ward looked out at the stars again. It's time to write new stories. Stories of courage, unity, and hope. Stories that will be told long after we're gone, Jarnock smiled. Then let's make sure those stories are worth telling. As the ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying its crew toward the next battle, the human veteran felt something he hadn't felt in years: sense of belonging. The myths were no longer just tales told around fires. They were living, breathing realities, etched into the hearts of warriors from many worlds. And Captain Eli Ward knew that, as long as that spirit lived, humanity's place in the galaxy was secure. Because sometimes the greatest legends are the ones we live.